Hey everyone, it's good to see you guys. Laura and I are back here with Nim. We're really excited to get an update from Nim just to see how he's been doing. If you didn't see our last coaching session, we did a coaching session about a week ago with Nim, and we went pretty deep on some of the things that were coming up for you. Went into where the power was being pushed in and the voice and not being heard. How have you been, man? Like, has anything come up for you? What have you noticed any shifts or changes?
Consciously speaking, I haven't noticed anything at a conscious level, but I mean, sort of because of the restrictions that I've got around me, it has given me time to sort of introspect a bit more, and I feel a lot more calmer. I don't know if that's because I'm not actually in the classroom teaching teenagers and kids who stress me out from not doing their homework and stuff. But yeah, but I'm teaching them a lot online at home anyway. So it's but I'm okay. I'm doing good. I'm doing good on that.
Do you feel like you're seeing anything differently, or no, just noticing more about yourself and the way you do put yourself out there, even if you're not really getting to interact so much?
No, I'll be honest. I haven't noticed much difference, but it's probably because of the restriction. I mean, I've been my parents live in India, so I sort of Skype them every day, or we're sort of every 2 days or something. So I speak to my mum a lot. But I have had I've had a few synchronicities, but that's more on the kind of angelic side. I had like a massive. I mean, is it okay if I go into it?
Absolutely, yeah. Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like yesterday, I literally sat down to commence my first class of the day, and I was just sitting there waiting for time to go by to start it. And I just noticed, because my office faces that way and then my bedroom's that way, and I just turned my head, looked in the bedroom, there was a massive flash of lightning just from out of nowhere. So I knew straight away that was probably Imogen, my guide, or Archangel Michael, with whom I've had a bit of a quite fairly close connection with in the recent past. I've been seeing a lot of 1111s and 2222. That's come up for me because it's synchronistic numbers, which is ongoing for me. But it's to me, it's more kind of a reassurance that everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's like I was there at your Atlantis webinar.
Yeah,
I was there, so it was what I saw in that, though. That was something really profound. That was very profound. Thank you so much for hosting that. That was really great. Because I actually I'd recently got clarification out of that from a soulmate that I met. Where are we? 2019. I met her in October 2018. We never kind of came together because she'd sort of just come out of her first breakup ever. So she'd been with her ex for about 5.5 years. But when I'd met her, initially I didn't really have anything, but then just suddenly I grew so close to her, really attached to her. And I noticed what I did is I ended up latching onto her, which is a common thing that a lot of the wounded healers you often refer to, some of your videos, which is why I was there at the webinar for Atlantis, because you were making reference to it. And I thought, yeah. And when I would often see her, it was like, I used to feel really romantic about her. But then what happened when we had the webinar for Atlantis, I actually realized that she was there. Because I hope this doesn't excessively trigger anyone, because I know you said in your video, was it your live today, you said a few people sent you emails saying that they were really
they trigger
and stuff. But you know, without triggering too many people, or triggering too much, just I saw her get swept up in a monstrous sized hurricane, which was kind of, I think they were trying to control the weather, so tore. And it was weird because the next thing after that was I was in this kind of command center, like I think maybe they were trying to, where they would control things. And 1 minute everyone's sitting there working away. They were, I mean, imaginary, like they had headpieces around them walking away, like people do in an office. The next minute I blinked and turned around and there's just, everyone's on the floor. Wow. And I had a broken back. I was limping around with a lot of pain. I've never felt any pain here, but it was there. I was walking around like this, and it occurred to me, the reason is because I'd been carrying the weight of so many people on my back all these years, and that has weighted down to me. And I think that kind of related back to what you guys did with me with the coaching last week, because it was, the gist that I got out of it was, it's not my baggage to carry everybody. It's not my responsibility to carry everybody else's baggage. Right. And that was the whole story for me. Right. And I think that's why I tried to play the wounded healer and save this soulmate of mine, whom I've felt like we've probably been together in a number of lifetimes, but this lifetime, obviously, we didn't come together. But I think it's because I tried to save her and I tried to make her feel better, but it wasn't my responsibility to do that. That's her baggage. That was her responsibility. And that's kind of what the insight's been for me, sort of from last week's coaching up to sort of today.
So you've kind of cleared it from your lifetime today and the past, and you've cleared both sides, because there's always karma. So if you think about if you in that lifetime, if you caused a lot of people to be hurt, because if you were in the control room too, we think, okay, well, what was I doing in there? Like,
absolutely.
You know? Then the control that we've all done all these things. And then in this time, being born with the father, the masculine controlling you, it, as painful as it is to look at that, there's that karmic balance of like, well, if I was controlling, then I have to receive the control. And so we release that from this lifetime and from the core lifetime, whenever it began as well. And then we've cleared everything at all angles. Right. So then I would be interested to see how you feel in another week, now that you've cleared both sides of that, because then you're going to feel like freaking epic. I mean, because you've cleared it from all the sides.
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember, I did a coaching session with you. It was probably last year or the year before.
Yeah.
I don't know if do you remember?
I was in England at the time. I do remember. I don't remember what happened, but I know we did one.
Right. Yeah. It was. Yeah. I mean, like that wasn't as intense. Like this one on the Atlantis one, it was something else. But because I can see the way it's playing out in my lifetime with the relationships that I've got with so many people.
Yeah.
I think your live about an hour ago, you were talking about soul contracts, and a lot of that made a lot of sense to me. It's just the integration of everything with soul work, with shadow work, with trauma healing. A lot of it is kind of I've actually discovered there's to use the example, you know, when people say you can join dots to something, and then you see the bigger picture, and that's, I think, what I'm now starting to see, that it's all slowly but surely it's coming together. All the pieces of the jigsaw are fitting in place.
Yep. Yeah.
Nim, with you clearing all this out and no longer taking on baggage, how do you see that changing your relationships?
Well, for a start, it's I feel it's made me think about, you know, one of the first things that at least I would need to do, which would be to draw safe boundaries in in a non-aggressive and a non-passive aggressive way, in just in a firm but polite way. Or as you guys gave me the recommendation about diffusing a situation with humor, on the spot humor in the spur of the moment, using something like that to just say, well, okay, fine, that's your opinion, you can stick by that, this is my opinion, it's the free world, right? So just using that kind of mechanism to diffuse a situation, I feel that would probably help me draw boundaries around me. And it kind of draws boundaries for me so that I know when not to cross over into somebody else's territory. Because I'm the one who if I feel like I'm latching onto a certain individual, which I've often done with a lot of women that I've met in my life. I think they call it. I saw this from a YouTuber, an Instagrammer, Jake Woodard. He does a lot of masculine healing and stuff. I think he called it the Peter Pan syndrome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've had a lot of that in me, but I can see it because when it mirrors in the relationship with the number of women that I've dated. I have noticed that especially my younger years, they've had to mother me, but they've had to mother me because there's so much of a wounding, both masculine and feminine, but masculine more so, that it's played out repetitively in a number of relationships that have just come and gone.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see in the future, if you ever decide to go down the route again of relationships, what that would look like for you. Because when you've released all that stuff and the dynamics are a little bit more balanced, then it creates a whole different type of relationship, and it creates a whole different type of energy and a whole different world. That's what that's what Jerry and I see with people that are a bit more not so wounded, not coming from that place, but coming from that place. Creates a whole different shift in relationships and a whole different dynamic, and we're seeing it more and more. That's why we're doing these videos, to make people more aware of what it looks like. People come like that rather than like that. Was it this, Jared? I can't remember. Two whole people.
But it makes sense, because I think it's like if people were to I just had a thought. It's just like, but then that it would shift the energy so much that you wouldn't be. Those sorts of people would, if they were in your life, they would probably drop off, or they would raise their own vibration, and you'd be on the same sort of platform. But then, if you're no longer here and you're up here, then the sort of the bracket of a potential mate that you would attract would be somebody vibrating, whose vibration would be oscillating somewhere around here, as opposed to here. So. I guess I would see the difference, and I guess anyone would. You'd see it straight away.
Totally, and there is a level of, as you rise up, feeling like you want to pull everyone up and fix everyone. Then you get to another level where you're like sad because you're feeling great and people are dropping away, and then you go even bigger where you're like, well, I'm just going to stay here, and whoever wants to catch up can. And you have no feelings towards who's going to be with you and who's not. You're just completely present in who you are, and whoever stays. Maybe they stay for a little bit, maybe they don't, but because nothing's permanent. I'm really seeing that in life these days. When we release the idea that we can have permanence, you really set yourself free, because most of the time that people are hurt is because they thought they were going to have something forever, and then they didn't have it forever. Have you noticed?
Yeah, there's that attachment. That attachment creates that suffering.
Totally.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you, going forward, what are you hoping for? Are you hoping to see a particular type of change, or have you really just been open to anything happening? Like, what are you hoping for moving forward?
In terms of relationships, or just in life in general?
In terms of relationships and all the clearings that you did with Laura, and then also with us, what do you hope to see shift or change?
The main thing for me, I think, is drawing boundaries. It's drawing I think patience as well. there's the having too much of an impetus of wanting to make haste in a relationship and it to grow overnight is not healthy. But I still think I've got a long way to go in that area. I still have got a fair bit of work to do. I'm making progress, but it's about breaking away from that and getting myself to a place where I actually feel whole within myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then I don't feel that crave anymore.
Right. When we don't know how to draw boundaries, naturally it's really hard to feel whole in ourselves because people are always coming in and taking.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's usually where people's, I did a live the other day where I talked about the connection between the heart and the throat. And when we have walls up over our hearts, it's a lot of the times because we don't trust ourselves to draw boundaries with our voice. But then once we find our voice, which comes out, it can come out in anger when we first start using it. But once we learn to trust our voice, we put up those boundaries around us with our voice, and then our heart can open even more.
Yeah.
And so we can actually experience more connection with the world when we know how to draw boundaries with our voice, because then our heart naturally expands. There's a direct connection between how much we trust ourselves to use our own voice and how much our own heart will expand.
Right.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Laura, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think everyone can watch this and have an understanding about clearing not just past sides, but all sides of everything, whatever we've been through, whatever we've experienced, that puts us in the place now where we're at. Mm-hmm. We all can set ourselves free of anything that stops us from fully living from this space, from the heart center, and from, being the version of us that makes us the most happy. So I'm happy to see that's, I know you say you're looking to being whole, and you will get there, because if you have the intention, that's where you want to be, that's where you're going to go.
Yeah.
So you will get there. There's no doubt. We all do.
Your thoughts shape your reality. So it's the intention, you're putting it out there to the universe that you're going to get it back.
Exactly. So there's, even if it's just the smallest intention, it's when we're aware of concept, we naturally start choosing the path to understand that concept fully. And if wholeness is the concept or where you want to be, you're gonna get there 1,000%. You're already there. I mean, really, you're already there. It already exists. It's just choosing the path that lets you really see that more than what you may be seeing now. You'll get, because everything is now in the moment, I guess. Everything's present. Everything's already created. We just have to choose which path we want to go down. So I think it's great. I'm really happy for you that you've done a lot of work over the last couple of weeks. So I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nim, if you have, I'll check up with you again tomorrow, or sure. We'll follow up with you and just see how you're doing. And definitely keep me posted on what you see shift once we kind of reemerge out of the cocoon collectively.
Sure. Yeah.
That's when you might actually start seeing more differences externally, and start getting the reflections back and kind of those external tests.
Totally.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Nim, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for trusting Laura and I to dive deep with you. I always commend individuals who are willing to be vulnerable live. So we really appreciate you doing that. It's been an honor and a delight to have you on.
The honor's all mine. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it, Nim. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Now that's good. So I don't know. I'm excited to see exactly what comes up with him, because I think anytime that I've noticed a person starts to feel safer in their heart space, because they're finally able to express what they're really feeling on the inside, and it's not all pushed in, I noticed that like a lot of anger starts coming up at first. So that's why I want to check in with him once, because I know last week we could see and sense a lot of that anger that was there on the inside, and that all that from being pushed down for so long. And I know for me, when I went through my own awakening process, all that anger came to the surface and there was no holding it back whatsoever. And I didn't even know how to really communicate to that. So I definitely will be checking up with him like within the following weeks or so, just every now and then, just to make sure that it's like, because that's the thing, is like, once we awaken and this energy wants to come out, we might not necessarily have the right communication skills. Like I remember going through that space and telling like my parents like to F off because of all like the hurt that was caused in childhood. Like it was I know it was so bad though. It was so bad. Like I would yell at them and I'd curse at them, and then I would say I was sorry, because there's just so much anger that was coming up because it had been pushed down for so long. And I just didn't have the proper communication skills. So I think it's really important that when you open someone up in that way and you allow them that space to come up for what it is that needs to come up for them, then it's important to give them the right communication tools as well too, so it doesn't just blow up everything out of the water.
Yeah, I know I did that. I know that when I went through my sort of shift and awakening, I would yell at my ex all the time. I'd really shout at him. And people don't imagine me being that person either. But trust me, I said some pretty nasty things to that man, who has forgiven me in the last few years. And we're good. But that's what because I didn't know how to verbalize what I was feeling. And I've noticed that when we're in emotional pain, we tend to cover up with shame, guilt, and anger. Those are the three things I've noticed, that when we're really in pain, those are the three things that we feel the most. And I thought I'd get angry, then I'd feel guilty for being angry, then I'd go into shame and being really embarrassed I did that, and then I'd sort of vow to myself I wouldn't do it again, but then I would do it again.
Right. Well, I think this is a pretty cool topic to go into, because I don't think Annie's going to come anytime soon. So,
well, we have someone else if you want them to come through. I've given her the link. So we'll just see. She's watching now. She's going to try and come on. I've given her the link, so we'll just see. Give her a minute. She might pop in, but until then, we'll totally explore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to bring Elaine on. So yeah, really, I'd like to explore that connection between those emotions that you just mentioned there, Laura, because a lot of individuals, they don't know the emotional cycles or patterns that they get caught up in, and that's what's creating the mental loops. So can you just say more to that emotional pattern, like the connection between shame, guilt, and anger?
Yeah. So it connects to the level of control we're in with our emotions at the time. So when you go into anger, most people can agree that when you're really angry, you have no control over your emotions. It's like the red mist or whatever, and it's like, who are we, right? Like, this is not right. So you go from the bottom of the emotional scale to the top throughout the process. So when you have no control over your emotions, when you're in the place of depression or hopelessness or anything where you don't feel like you have the voice where you can control whatever's coming through, then the anger comes out, because there's so much emotion that needs to be expressed. You don't know how to express it. It needs to come out. So it just comes out through anger. And as that starts to clear through the anger, then the more of the who you really are starts to unfold a little bit, and you start to get a little bit more control because you've released the pain in that way. And that's when you start to think, then you go into fear, and that's the guilt, and it's like, oh my God, I feel really guilty. I did that. I hurt someone, and then they could leave because I did that to them, or I could lose this because I did that. And then you go to the guilt of like, oh my God, now and it's really what you've done is your own anger, your own self has destroyed a part of yourself, because if people are leaving, it's that reflection of you. So you got like the guilt, and then you go into the complete shame because you're in a bit more of a control place. You feel a little bit more safe and a bit more stable, but you're having to reflect on your own character and your own self. And it's embarrassing, and it's shameful, and it's criticizing the self, because it's easier to criticize the self than it is to accept what the self has done. It's sort of that whole process of moving through those emotions and those movements. And then once it's cleared, there can be that false security for a bit where it's like, I'm never going to do that again. And then you to. Eventually, for me, I was like, I'm not doing that again. And then I'd feel myself getting angry, and I'd know that was when I had to walk away, because I'd do something. It was never worth the guilt and the shame afterwards. It never was. So I just step out. And the more I did that, now I just don't even really get angry. There's nothing really, that's how I do it.
I love that. I want to, before we bring Elaine on here, I do want to go into that at least, or we can do it after. I think just visualizing that for people would be really useful, because Elaine came on, so we're going to bring her on. But I think it would be really cool to kind of diagram that, because one, I love diagrams and they help me.
I know you do. I know.
I love doing the diagrams with my whiteboard, so I think that's really important for at least for me. But I found that a lot of people are into their visuals. So I would love to actually kind of diagram and sketch that out, because once you understand that emotional spiral, which so many people get caught up in, once you see it outside of yourself, it's almost you can never get sucked into it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's exactly it.
Well, we're gonna bring on Elaine here. Hey, Elaine, it's good to see you.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining last minute.
I know, this is impromptu.
Thanks for filling in.
Yeah, no problem.
Elaine, where do you want to start?
I wanted to start with my throat chakra. So I've been working with Laura for a while now, and we've been peeling layers and everything. And right now, I've noticed that once we peel one layer, another thing starts to come up. So for me, I've noticed that I've had difficulty like setting boundaries with my voice. So Jared, I've been watching your videos on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. And I know that that's sort of like your specialty. So I would love to, work on that with you. And then Laura, she's really good in terms of like setting boundaries using like your personal power, but she does it in like a very feminine way. So, cause like for me, I feel when my throat chakra like opened up, maybe like the way that I set my boundaries, it might have came off as like a bit rude, or it's so like I'm still trying to like figure that out for myself.
Okay. Yeah. When you set boundaries, Elaine, what's the reaction that you get from people?
They get shocked, because I'm like quiet, or I feel myself almost wanting, almost like having like this habit of showing up in the way that they want me to show up, but then it's in the way I'm kind of sabotaging myself, because I'm not showing up as like my authentic self. So when my authentic self comes out, they kind of get like taken aback.
Yeah. Beautiful. So when you show up in that way, when you're giving your power away in that manner, you're showing up for them and not showing up for yourself, what do you start to feel on the inside?
My solar plexus, I feel like this really like tight sensation. I equate it to sort of like this bloating sensation. It doesn't feel really good, but it's also like it's weird. Like I have like this, I think in the past, like I've had like this fear of like speaking up.
What's scary about showing up as yourself and not how people want you to show up?
I think for me, it's this fear of judgment, and also this fear of what if they don't accept me for who I am.
Okay, so like a fear of rejection?
Yeah.
When was the first time that you experienced rejection?
I would say in my childhood. Yeah.
I'm gonna just ask Laura a question here, Elaine. Laura, I don't know how much work you guys have done together. Have you done a lot of clearings around like childhood work and the rejection that she experienced there? Because
Yeah, we've done.
Okay.
We've done a few because we've shifted quite, like even the reflections in your life today, we've kind of cleared through those and done all the yeah, we've done quite a few on that, I would say. But we've never done anything about
the throat. Yeah.
The throat. Yeah, the voice. So my inkling then is not to go into the past, but we're actually going to lay down a new framework for how to communicate in the future. I think that would be the best way to do things, because you've already done a lot of that past work with Laura. So now we're going to shift directions, Elaine, and we're going to lay down a blueprint for you to be able to communicate your boundaries in a way that feels good to you, but also doesn't scare the hell out of other people.
Yeah.
And I've totally been there. Like, I remember, I mean, literally before you got on the call, I was talking with Laura and I was sharing with her when I first really started finding my own voice, all this anger came up and I was just like, rah, 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 rah. And I just started scaring everyone. And everyone was like, no one knows how to deal with this guy. And I didn't even know how to deal with me. I was apologizing for me. I was like, I'm sorry, guys, but fuck you. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say that. And it was just, but it was because I was doing all this clearing work, but I hadn't been given a new blueprint, a new way of communicating that worked for other people, but then also worked for me and allowed a necessary or a smooth relationship to happen.
Yes, I was gonna say with anger, that was what has been coming up for me. It's like, I know, it's like I catch myself like, no, I should not agree to that, but then I can't voice it. So I was actually speaking to Laura, I think a few sessions ago, I was saying, Laura, I'm having like these breakouts, like these acne. So I realized it's the anger and the resentment that's like coming out.
Yeah. And when we like suppress ourselves for a long time, when we don't feel like we can be ourselves, it does just come out. Because it's like keeping a lid on a boiling hot pot. Eventually it's going to boil over and the water goes everywhere and then you put the lid back on. So we want to keep the lid off. We want to keep the hob at like a 6 or a 7. We don't want to keep it at a 10, so that it's like simmering and it's good, but it's not going to explode and it's not going to get cold. It's like that temperature that feels good for you. That's something.
Yeah. And I like the metaphor you used there, Laura, bubbling. Like, that's literally what acne is. It's like all the anger bubbling going in the skin.
Yeah.
Well, Elaine, can you give us an example of the last time where someone really triggered you and you drew quickly with your boundaries and it was really strong and fierce and they were kind of taken aback? Can you give us an example of that?
Yes. So I have like this, I want to say like this love-hate relationship with my manager. So with her, she is very like structured, very much still in that 3D kind of system, in like that patriarchy, wherein it's like, for me, I'm like the associate or like the assistant. So we're kind of like on the bottom of like the food chain. So for her, she kind of wants to like demand that respect. But for me, it's like, I don't see, for me, like that food chain, it's non-existent. Like, I treat everyone as like an equal. I treat everyone like how I guess like I would like to be treated. So when I say things to her, it's coming from a place of, like honesty and sincerity. But I understand that for her, like someone who hasn't done much healing or self-reflection, she takes it as like a trigger, like, oh, this girl is attacking me. Like, how dare you? So I wouldn't say she's threatened, that, to like, get me out of like the company or things like that, but she has mentioned that just realize that your actions have consequences. So it's like that I felt like that was her way of like drawing the boundary. But for me, I told her, I'm just speaking my truth, and my intention is not to hurt you, but I'm just like telling you this is what I see here. So
right. Can you give me a specific example where you're feeling like she's coming at you? Because there's two things here. First off, unfortunately, we can't hold people to the same worldview that we see the world as, even if it's right, no matter how right we think we are. We just can't. Because that's setting ourselves up for upset and anger. When we hold other individuals to see the world or expect for them to see it the same way we do, it just doesn't work out. Can you give me a specific example, like a scene maybe that you guys had together where anger came out for you and it didn't go well? Is there a specific scene that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I would say recently, basically, she wanted me to get like this task done, and so she called me into her office, and we were basically discussing about like the task and how it was orchestrated. So for her, she expected me to do like steps A, B, C, D. But then for me, I reached the I got like the task done, but like based on her, I didn't do it manually in the steps of like A, B, C, D. I kind of like jumped from like A to like D. But for me, like I didn't feel that like I made a mistake on my part or like I did it wrong, because it's like I got to the answer. It's kind of like a math problem. There's different ways of solving it, but like mine, I wanted to get it quicker done. But like for her, when she sees that, she feels that like, oh, I didn't really like take my time to go and do that. So she brought up that example, and then she also would bring up examples about like my past. And basically in like the past, there was this one time where we were hosting like an event for like the client, but I wasn't feeling well, so I couldn't stay at like the event, and I tried to find her before I left for that event, but I couldn't find her. I didn't know where she was, but I did send, like a text message to like let her know that, oh, hey, I'm not feeling well, so like I'm gonna take like my leave like right now. But like the next day she called me into like the office. It basically was telling me about like how unprofessional it was, and yeah, I saw that she was her, so I said, okay, like next time I won't do that again. But now that has been many months, whenever I do something wrong currently, like that's like current, she will always bring up like those other examples from like the past. But I'm like, but I'm not that person. That was like when I first started, it's like I'm completely different. Yeah. So that really irks me. I'm like,
Yeah. So she's holding the past versions of you hostage over your present self. Yeah, that wouldn't feel good. That wouldn't feel good at all. Gosh, I would love to get her in a room and train her on managing.
I would love to see that.
That's a whole nother topic though. Okay, so do you want to role play this a little bit, Elaine? Like are you okay with role playing?
Yeah.
You and then we'll
I've seen you guys done it before, so yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. Before we go into this role play, I just want to ask, what is it that angers you most about how she communicates and treats you?
I feel like she does it in a way that like belittles, like very belittling. I mean, I get where she's coming from, because she sees herself as like, she is the manager. You have to respect me. It's like, even if what I'm doing is like incorrect, like you still have to follow like the rules, that sort of thing. But like for me, I'm like, oh, I feel like it goes against my morals in a way. So I'm like, but yeah.
Gotcha. So it's just the fact that you feel disrespected by her.
Yeah, and I also feel like she's not listening to me. She's not really listening to me. I mean, Jared, I know you did a video where you said people true versus like true listening and what people think that they're listening. I feel like for her, she's listening for when I make that mistake. And then she takes that mistake and then she just wants to drill her point through. I'm like, you're not listening.
Right. Beautiful. Okay. And have you guys had to, this is the last question I'll ask and then we'll get into it. Have you guys had any conversations go back and forth where this whole situation was tried to put to rest and mediated, or?
Yeah, I mean, we did have like a conversation. It's like whenever like those sort of circumstances happen, we always try to talk about it. But again, I see like no improvement in the conversation. So for me, what I did was I decided to write like my feelings out in like a letter, and then like I sent it to her. But she found it so offensive. Like she found that it was like such an attack on like her ego. But I'm like, I'm just being honest from like where I am. Like I'm not saying like you're the bad person. I'm just saying this is what I see.
Yeah.
So.
Gotcha. So let's do this. The situation is you guys are meeting, and there's clearly some sort of miscommunication. We're coming together and we're trying to figure out how to get on the same wavelength, because you guys are on the same wavelength right now. She's up here seeing you as a problem employee, and she sees you as being disrespectful and unprofessional, and you see her as not actually being able to listen to you or hear you. And that makes you feel belittled and disrespected as well too. So we're going to try to get it on the same wavelength. You ready to do it?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Right, cool. So I'm going to play her. What's her name?
Her name is Rebecca.
Rebecca. Gotcha. So I'm going to play Rebecca and you'll be you. And we're just going to take this. I'm going to be into this role. So it might feel a little bit weird at first, but just rock and roll with it. I promise you'll do great.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to do a little bit of reset here. Beautiful. All right. Hey, Elaine, it's good to see you.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm doing okay. So I just wanted to talk about some of the things that you've been doing lately, the performances, how you've been showing up at work. I'm really not appreciating how you're showing up. The other day, I asked you to show up on time. You didn't show up. You just kind of left. And that was very unprofessional. It wasn't okay.
I see. But Rebecca, I did try to contact you. I sent you a message that, that I was running late. So I did give you like that notice.
You should be able to know, but you should be able to know when to leave and when to stay. And I felt like you just completely disrespected me and really disrespected the work relationship.
Well, that's not really my intention. Like my intention is never to disrespect you. So I'm sorry that you took it that way.
Something needs to change. Something needs to change, because I'm tired of trying to get you to perform the way that I'd like for you to perform. Like the other day, I asked you to do these 4 things, and you went from step 1 all the way to step 4 and just skipped steps 2 and 3. And it's like when I have things laid out, I have it laid out for a purpose, and you weren't following that at all.
Rebecca, I see where you are coming from, but I did get like the job done, but I did it in the way in which I was in how I was taught to do like the job. So I think next time, if you wanted me to like get it done like your way, just let me know. I think if you can be more transparent with me, that would be great.
Great. I'm going to stop the role play there.
Yeah.
Nice.
You as Rebecca is really intimidating. I don't like that.
Yeah, Rebecca's energy. I would love to coach her. I would totally love to coach her. I'd have a field day. It'd be great.
No, Jerry, you did good. That's exactly how she's like. She's like, I don't trust you, and I'm like,
I've worked with a lot of these managers, so I know their energy and their issues and things like that. Okay, so what did you feel? What came up for you just as you were sharing all that? Where did you feel in your energy, in your body? What was happening for you?
For me, I felt it's like I felt like she was almost like I was like a little kid talking to like an adult, and it's like, oh, there is, it's like I mentioned, like that belittling kind of like feeling. It's like, you stay where you are, and it's like, I'm telling you that you did this wrong. You need to feel some guilt, some shame. You need to be responsible for how I am feeling. And I'm like, no, I don't.
Right. Right. And you don't. And honestly, just for some feedback, I think you communicated that pretty well. I can definitely do some tweaks there to make that go through a little bit better. But really, you communicated that really well. I was actually I was really impressed. You've definitely been doing the work with Laura. I can see it.
Yes.
All right, beautiful. So let's switch it up a little bit here, Elaine. So you get to play me and Rebecca, and I get to play you.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get down on my seat here a little bit. Maybe I'll raise the camera higher to make it to give the seat more. All right.
Okay. Hi, Elaine. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, I wanted to talk to you about what happened yesterday at the event. I wanted you to be there, and when I was looking for you, I couldn't find you. What happened there?
So I completely understand that you expected me to be there. Honestly, I thought we had completed everything that we needed to complete, and I felt like we had done all the work that we needed to do, and I had some other things to take care of. So I left, and I just went back. I went home.
That is very unprofessional. You left without even speaking to me personally about it.
I understand how you could perceive this as being unprofessional. It was just an honest mistake. And I feel like right now you're perceiving me as a very unprofessional employee. I feel like I'm being perceived as not capable. There's a part of me that feels belittled, and I understand your point of view. However, I had no intention of being unprofessional. I had no intention of just showing up in a way that you didn't approve of. The reality of it is I think there were some expectations that weren't communicated. And I would like for you to communicate those expectations to me so I can be the best employee that I can for you, as well as the company. There's a lot of expectations that I feel like you're placing upon me that I'm not aware of. And I just need to hear those expectations. I'm more than happy to follow those expectations. That's what I want, because I want the company to be successful. I want you to be successful as a manager. But I feel like I'm being belittled, and I feel like it's because you're placing all these unconscious expectations upon me. If you share with me the expectations that you have and are very clear about that, I promise you I will follow those expectations. I just need to know what they are. I have no intention of disrespecting you. I have no intention of not being professional. I'm really thankful for the work. I'm thankful that I get paid to be here. I know it's a great opportunity, but I just need to have a clear understanding of what your expectations are. Can we talk about expectations so we can get on the same wavelength here? Because I don't feel like we're on the same wavelength here. And I want to do good work for you, but I also want to I want to be able to show up in a way that allows everyone to be successful, and that's not happening. And I think we need to have a conversation around expectations. Are you okay with going into having a conversation around expectations?
Well, that's very brave of you to speak your honesty. And yes, I do feel that this relationship can have room for improvement.
Do you see any ways where it can improve? And not, I understand there are things that I need to work on, and I'm more than willing to work on them. However, I think there's some other areas that we can go to. Could you share with me some areas that you think we could go into that would allow this working relationship to flourish?
For one, I would say communication in both of our parts does need work. So I'm happy to I'm happy to say, if you have any questions, just be open about it. Just come and ask me. Don't assume that you want things to be done, that you think that the task needs to be done like a certain way. Just ask me. Don't assume. Don't just do it, and then I find out that it wasn't done in the way that I wanted it to be done.
Beautiful. So we're just going to drop the role play there. Nice work, Elaine. What did you see being in her position?
Yeah, I see like from her position, it was it's like I feel like for you, the way that like you said everything, I mean, you were using like your voice like really good, like from like a sincere place, and she didn't feel, I felt, me as Rebecca, I didn't feel like I was being like I guess like attacked. I felt like you are I felt like you had the intention to continue to really like try to like do like your best, to do like your best, and that you wanted to like make like this this collaboration work, and that you were open to like the feedback, and you were being completely like transparent and like honest and authentic, but like in like a caring way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go to Laura and see what she saw from her perspective. But before I do that, Elaine, did you see how when I was playing the role of you, did you see how instead of me trying to share my just trying to share my viewpoint, I asked questions to get her to see my viewpoint? Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Whenever we want to make a connection with a person, if they have a defense and an ego up and they're really solid in their position. So Rebecca's really solid in her position of seeing you as a bad employee, seeing you as unprofessional, and seeing you as being disrespectful to her authority. That's how she's perceiving you. And she's really fixed on that perception. The more you try to tell her your view or share your honest truth with her, because it sounds like she doesn't have that capability to be as empathetic as you, that for some people, they actually get harder and they close down and entrench even more into their perception, because like, oh, now look, she's trying to one up me, or now look, she's trying to argue with me, or now she's trying to be rebellious. And so you have to work within their paradigm and within their perception. Now, it doesn't mean you own their paradigm or their perception. So her perception of you, like being a bad employee, being unprofessional, like you have to work within that from the inside out, instead of trying to just share your truth with her. I would love for the world to just accept the truths that I have, but that's not, unfortunately, how human beings work. A lot of individuals are really trenched in their perceptions, because perception is reality. At least how we see the world is our reality. And so we have to work within another person's perception of us, and then slowly unwind that. And the way that we do that is we ask questions. So we work within the paradigm. So she has this paradigm of you being unprofessional, you being, disrespectful to her. And so immediately, in order to establish the connection, I first noted her perception. I said, I understand how you perceive me. I understand that you see that I'm unprofessional. I understand that you see me as being, disrespectful to you. That lets her know that you understand her view and her perception. Now she's actually going to listen to you because you share the same perception with as her. It doesn't mean you have to agree with the perception, but it just establishes the connection. And now you have her attention. Now she's actually going to be able to listen to what it is that you have to share. Does that first part make sense?
No, it does. Cause like for me, it's when I'm like with her, like in that room, cause I'm an empath, I can pick up on her energy. It's so heavy. And then in the past, what I've done, the more I've been like telling her, I was like, oh, like, just letting you know, like, I see you from like a place of like compassion and empathy, but like I did it in a way where I almost dimmed my light to like be down at her level, and it did not feel good at all. So I felt like I was almost compromising myself to meet her at that level. So like what you did, it was great. It was like you were holding like your space. It's basically what like Laura has been like teaching, like you hold your space and then like you let them be like where they have to be. Yeah.
There was one more part that I wanted to go into a little bit deeper, but before I go in there, I want to revert to Laura. Laura, what did you see from your perspective?
So, I mean, it's kind of similar to what you guys have talked about now, but there is definitely this before when Ella, you were being you, and Jared, you were being scary Rebecca. Like, I just didn't even like being in the energy of pretending to be Rebecca because it was actually it's intimidating, right? It's quite scary. I was like, I want my friend back. But there's this feeling of like, when someone comes to us, and I've experienced this from both sides as well, is, say, for example, in the past, I remember there was a time where I was upset. And I've said to that person, listen, what you did really upset me. Can we talk about that? And there's two things that always would make me put my guard up and make me want to attack, and then they defend. The first one was, I'm sorry if you feel that way. Because to me, what that's saying is, well, you're wrong, but you're just seeing it that way. So I'm sorry you see it that way. That for me personally, I don't know about you guys, but when someone says, I'm sorry you see it that way, to me, I would always feel like, oh, so are you saying and I know that we don't mean it like that, but people that aren't in their consciousness or they're not self-aware, they take it as that, because I know I do. So there's that piece as well. But then there's this piece of, if we start like, I'm sorry you feel that way, or if we say, yeah, I understand, but all that person hears is the but, and then they hear that these are all the things that I think, which is my belief, which therefore makes you wrong. People that aren't in their conscious mind, they don't hear what you're actually saying. They hear, I'm right and you're wrong. I'm going to defend myself, or I think that your opinion is invalid. And so they instantly attack because that triggers them. They go and attack. Whereas did you see how you wanted to shift when you were being Rebecca, how you wanted to communicate with Jared back? Because he was open and he was able to say what he believed and what he felt, but there was this sort of wholeness of everything rather than it being like back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. It was more like I'm going to scoop both of us together and we're going to create something together. So it's like, rather than I'm me and you're you, let's defend, attack. It's more like, let's be together in this and figure out, and let's co-create together so that you're happy, I'm happy, and therefore no one has to feel like they're above anyone. Because when you were being you and he was being Rebecca, there was this sense of, right, like you would feel with her where you feel below her because she's kind of really throwing it at you. And so you want to defend yourself because no one wants to be belittled. But the more you defend yourself, the more she attacks, and so on and so forth. Whereas when it was reversed and Jared was doing it in a way where it was like co-creating and scooping the energy, there was a level of you guys were together. And in a way, he didn't drop his power. He stayed where he was, but in a place of compassion. And your energy rose up to meet him. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, I respect it. Because if that was the dynamic, I would imagine that your manager doesn't have anyone speak to her with that kind of co-creative energy. So it brings them up. And that's what I think what you were trying to get to. It's like, I'll stay here and maybe she'll come up no, it didn't work. So I'll go down and you're like, oh, that feels horrible. So then it's like this constant back and forth and no one wins, right?
Yes.
So when we scoop everyone up and we're like, look, guys, we're in this together, which is exactly what I know you want to do because you treat everyone as an equal, and I love that about you. So that's just learning how to do it with the voice. It's scooping, you go together, and then you kind of go to the same frequency. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. I liked what you said about the co-creation because that's exactly what it is. It's ultimately getting on the same level and getting them to hear you. Like even though your perception might be right in the sense of everyone's equal and compassionate, like we can say that all that we want, but if a person doesn't see the world that way, they're not going to be able to see or listen to you. So we have to work within their paradigm and their perception, and then slowly ask the right questions to guide them back into ours. And that's where that collaboration happens. I want to do one more role play, Elaine, and I know it might feel like we're beating it, but I'm excited to see what comes out on the other side. But before we do this, I'm just going to kind of share one concept. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this is ultimately what it. Hopefully, my
You're
screen.
gonna get up your paint, aren't you? There it is.
Oh man, look at that! Yeah, I'm going to bring up my paint. But first, before I bring up the paint, I want to make sure that hopefully StreamYard registers it, because if I can't bring up paint, then I'm not going to be able to do this.
We love it when you bring up paint.
Oh darn. Okay, it's let me bring it up on the online then, because it's actually not working on here. There's ultimately in every engagement, there's always 3 realities that are happening. There's always 3. And the more we can understand and communicate to every single reality, the more peace and the more cohesiveness we can create, the more collaboration we can create. So the first reality is always, and this is where people see from their own viewpoint, is their own subjective reality. So it looks like this. Can you guys see the paint here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the first, there's me or myself. So that's the first reality. The second reality is them, right? And then the third reality is how it all plays out, or God's reality, or the universe's reality, whatever you want to call it. And so you have your view, we'll call it viewpoint 1. That other person has theirs, viewpoint 2. But then how the 1 and 2 play out, that's where God's reality comes in. It's number 3. And most people are attached to their reality happening. They say, I want mine to happen, so I'm going to argue my point. And then another person says, well, I like my point, and I'm going to argue my point. And this is pretty much all persuasiveness has developed from this. Like I'm going to use emotion and logic and all this other stuff. But what we need to do is first truly see where another person's point of view is coming from, get into their world, acknowledge their viewpoint, acknowledge how we're being seen. It doesn't mean agree to how we're being perceived, but it just means acknowledging how we're being perceived. Because once we acknowledged how we're being perceived by that other person, and we connect with that, and we acknowledge that for them verbally, then they'll actually listen to us. Then we'll have their ears. And then when they're actually listening to us, that's when we ask them the right questions to pull them into how we see the world. And then when they might not necessarily agree with our viewpoint, but they're going to get closer. They're going to end up somewhere in the middle right here. And what's created in that middle space is perception, or point number 3, which is a lot better than, point number 2 here. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Does this make sense? Okay, cool. So this is always happening in every dynamic, every dynamic all the time. There's their bubble, there's your bubble, and then how those bubbles play out. And sometimes one person's perception will win and sometimes yours will win. But the best thing that we can do is ask the right questions, communicate to them that we understand their perception, but don't necessarily agree with it. That's holding your power. I see where you're coming from, but I'm not going to agree with it. But then once we communicate that, then they'll listen to us. And then that's when we slowly ask questions so they come into our world more. That was a lot.
No, it makes sense because technically, me is them and them is me. So, right. So if I know that with every healthy conversation I've had, we're both acknowledging that the other one perceives something the way they perceive it for whatever reason. We don't need to agree with it, but we acknowledge it and we understand it, and then we create something with the understanding that we now have, which then builds the next tier of friendship or relationship or whatever. So it makes perfect sense. Then yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Beautiful.
And that is it. Because if someone can at least acknowledge how you feel, like if Rebecca was to say, "Oh, okay, I totally understand that. I totally understand how you saw it that way, and I get that," you would just suddenly would let down any guard that you had because you're like, "Oh, I'm safe." To get it. And it's creating a safe environment for everyone, I think.
Right. Even when you're compassionate and loving and you share your viewpoint from a compassionate and loving perspective, if you're telling your story and your side of things, automatically that person is going to perceive you as a threat to their worldview. And that means you're not honoring how they see the world, which is disrespectful, which is why she sees you disrespectful, even though you're communicating from a very loving place. So we have to always work within the other person's perception if we want to get anywhere.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elaine, can we do one more and then we'll do a debrief and then we'll close it up? Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot, but yeah, I think I'll do my best.
Okay. And if it totally goes south, it's perfectly fine. I promise you that you're going to get a lot of downloads from this later. So if it's not all in the moment right now, it's okay. All right. So I will be her and you'll be you. And go. Hey, Elaine, it's good to see you.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Honestly, I'm a little bit upset because the other day we had this event, you showed up and I shared with you all the instructions, everything that had to be done. And suddenly you disappeared and there's a couple things I needed you for and I couldn't find you. And it was very unprofessional and I felt very disrespected. And that was not okay.
Oh, Rebecca, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for at that event. You couldn't find me when you needed me. I understand that you expected me to show up at the event and help you out with it. So I apologize that I wasn't able to meet your expectations. For me, I wasn't really feeling well, and I see where I could have maybe communicated that better with you, maybe in front of you in person. So I apologize for not showing up the way that you wanted me to show up. But you do know that I do work hard, and I am thankful that you invited me to go to that event and to meet with the clients. So with that said, I would love to I give you my sincere apology, but I would love to continue to build on this relationship, and I'm open to your feedback. And next time when things like this happen, I'm open to working it out with you for so that you won't get upset, and then I won't come off as looking as unprofessional, because that was not my intention. So I apologize.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. It was just upsetting because you didn't show up, and I mean, you showed up, but you left early, and I really need you in those situations. Like there's times where I'm going to need you. Like that's why you're hired. That's why we're paying you. And so when you just leave, I feel like I'm not supported. I feel like where's my staff? Where's my people? I'm trying to manage a lot of different things. And then when you're not showing up, it's like, I need you to be dependable. And I just don't feel like you're dependable.
I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I just want to let you know that I am doing my best to like be there for you. And outside of that event, I've always shown up when you ask me to do a task. I always do it. I commit to it. I'm still learning as I go along, and I feel like sometimes maybe your expectations for me it isn't really is my sort of reality, but I'm doing my best to try to meet those expectations. But perhaps maybe next time we can be a lot more open in our conversations about those expectations, so that we can basically set new expectations that are fair and that I can meet them, and then you'll be happy with them as well.
Yeah, I like that. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think maybe I should take. Yeah, I think maybe I should take some more time out to. I'm kind of seeing that I maybe didn't explain things to you as I needed them, and I think that would be good. I think that would be good if we got more clear on expectations. Yeah, I think that would be good. I like that idea. That's a really good idea.
Good.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we're going to stop role play. There was so much stuff that came up with me for you, but before I share that, I just want to ask, how did you experience it, and how did you feel about it?
I felt it's like what you said. I wasn't coming from just like that one space. Because like back then, it's like what you said, how she was attacking, so I felt I had to defend, attack, defend. But this time it's like I acknowledge where she is coming from, so I felt like that wholeness like come into play. Like I acknowledge it, but then I'm also like speaking my truth, and I am like making it clear that like I want to like work together like with you, so that this is not like a one person, so that she doesn't feel that she's kind of like left out in the cold, and that I don't feel like I'm like not being heard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just reading some of the comments.
Yeah,
you got a lot of supporters. So Elaine, one of the things where when I was playing Rebecca, I had like my Rebecca hat on, but I also had my deeper coaching hat on. And there's definitely a lot that Rebecca needs to be coached on in terms of correct management. I would love to have a session with her. I would love to have 3 sessions with her. But that's not the point. The point is, what kept coming up for me was you asking for what you need. And like, that's a totally different way you could change that power dynamic and that dialogue. Not just saying your point of view, but saying like, hey, Rebecca, I want to be a good employee. I know you perceive me as disrespectful, all those things that we talked about. But what I really need as an employee, you have rights. There's the whole laws written over it. Like, you have rights as an employee. And the best managers know how to support their staff. They know how to listen to their staff. They know how to communicate to their staff. They don't see their staff as below them. Yes, there is that power dynamic and structure, but they're able to work with it in a fluid way, so the people, quote unquote, under them don't feel disrespected. I love engaging with great managers, because when I see it, it excites me. And one of the things that I saw for you that's on offer for you when you go into work is to asking for the support that you need to perform to your highest capabilities.
Mm.
And Rebecca clearly has no understanding as a leader how to bring out the best of her employees. But you have rights as an employee to ask for the support that you need. So I would just encourage you to ask yourself after this conversation, what support do I need from my managers in order to perform at the highest level that they want me to perform at? You know, like a million things came to my mind was, okay, I need expectations need to be clearly talked about. I need to be able to know that I can trust my managers to be able to go to them when I'm having trouble or issues. There's no trust in this relationship whatsoever. I could get a deep sense of that. So I would encourage you that the next conversation you have with Rebecca, to ask for different ways that you could be supported so you can perform to the standards that she has set for you. Because what you're doing in that moment is you're putting the responsibility on her, because her responsibility as a manager is to support you in a way that allows you to perform at your top level, at your highest level.
Yeah, that's good.
How's that feel?
I agree. No, I agree. It's so true. It's like for me, it's like I felt like was it like that support isn't there? So like I'm kind of like I felt like for like the longest time I've just been like thrown into like the water. Like I had to find my own way to like swim, and then it's like sink or swim. So like I have to find out like own way to like swim. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. But here's the great thing about it. Like, the best managers know if they're drowning their own employees, and she's unconsciously drowning you and she doesn't realize it. So just put the responsibility and ask her and say, I would love to meet those standards that you have for me. I'd be more than happy. I just need more support. How can you give me more support? And put it on her.
Mm.
And it's not telling, it's just asking, like, how can you give me more support so I can meet those standards that you want me to meet? Total shift in the power dynamic. And it's very subtle. And there's no manipulation. It's just, look, if you're going to hold me to these standards, there's certain needs that I need to have be met in order for me to perform at my highest level. And so when you ask her that question, how can you support me in a way that allows me to meet those standards? She's going to have to she'll probably have to take 2 glasses of wine and a night out for herself to really think about that.
No, I think that's good. I felt like, I don't think, because she has always told me that like she's managed other employees before me. Like she said that like the last job that she was at, she had to manage 10 people. So she said, so right now I'm just managing 1 person, and she's like finding it difficult. So I think like no one has ever like spoken to her in that way. So it'd be quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people, I guess, in the management position, until they have really good training, don't know how to truly lead and support the people under them. And they kind of rule with an iron fist of tyranny.
Yeah.
But they just don't know any better. They really don't. It comes from an innocent place. They just don't know any better. They haven't been shown a different way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
That was cool to watch.
Yeah. How are you feeling now, Elaine?
I feel a lot better. I feel like now I know how to approach the situation. I think that doing that role play, it definitely helped. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go and like try it out like the next time I see her. So like next week. And right now we're all working from home. So in a way, I was telling her the other day, I was like, I feel like our communication has improved a little, because now that we're kind of like away from each other, like that space dynamic, I'm like, I can flourish like on my own. It's like, yeah. So.
Yeah. Good. And the last question I'll just ask is, are you going to ask her like how she can support you? Do you see how that could be effective and cool?
Yeah, because like I don't feel like she's like at a total loss as like a manager. I feel like she does recognize that we do hit like snags within like our dynamic, and she wants to like make it work, but perhaps like she doesn't know how. but she isn't gonna like tell me like, oh, I don't know how we're gonna make it work. Like she's kind of like very like about it. Yeah.
Right. You can learn to manage up. I've coached employees who have unconsciously managed their manager or consciously managed their managers unbeknownst to their managers. And they created their managers the way that they wanted their managers to be without their managers even knowing it. And so that little tool right there that I gave you, asking those questions, that's really going to take you a far way.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try it because I was never shown like that way to like do that. So now that I have a frame of like reference, and now that I understand how it's like to like be within, to like speak in like that sort of position, it's very empowering. So I'm definitely going to like take that with me.
Good. Oh, good. That's great to hear. Beautiful. Laura, do you have anything else?
I don't. That was great to watch. It was great to see that. I mean, the tool, it's always difficult when you first get into it. I had to learn to do it as well. Like when I have people that come to me and they're really upset and they're rude, it's sort of putting your voice out, but bringing them into your heart as well. And you can do that without having to lower your energy or go into their anger and fear. You can step back and you can even ask them like, well, why do you think you feel that way? Well, why do you think that is? And get them to even try and kind of ask them, get themselves to kind of look at their own, because when someone's aware of something, they can suddenly see it when they start doing it, like, well, what is that? Well, that's cool. I get that. Because, when, like we were talking about, if someone understands you, it's like, I remember my ex saying to me, well, can you tell me a little bit about why you do that? And I would say it. And he's like, great. I just want to know so that I know you more and so that I know how to communicate when I'm with you. And then you're kind of cuddling them with your energy, because you're saying, look, I want to understand you more so that I know how to respect you, or I know how to communicate with you. And again, you're just co-creating with that energy, like leveling up, understanding each other, understanding how to be around each other and honoring each other, but also respecting yourself. So yeah, good job. Jared is the guy to go to when it comes to learning about how to use your voice. Like, you take the right place.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like, because I didn't have my voice for so long, I put a lot of emphasis on it. Beautiful. Well, Elaine, what we're going to do is we'll bring you back on. I think, Laura, you and I aren't doing any live coaching next week, correct?
No, I'm moving house. Yeah. So we're going to go week after.
Beautiful. So, Elaine, I'll send you an email and we'll reconnect, and we'll bring you back on and just see what shifted and changed, and see what's worked for you and what hasn't, and what needs to go back to the drawing board and what's A-okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Elaine. We'll check. I'll check in with you tomorrow, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Beautiful. That was really great. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I love that coaching manager stuff, and role play's fun. Role play's such a fun thing to do.
Yeah, it works, and it's great for people to watch that and see it, because I know that she isn't the only person that needs to kind of figure out how to voice, but and each person is different. You have to kind of gauge where they're at and how to go in to acknowledge how they are. But I think people can watch that and really understand and see themselves in that, and where they can make improvements.
Yeah. And even just playing the role of the persecutor, that is kind of empowering in and of itself, because you understand their perspective on a deeper level, and also you kind of can understand how you need to communicate them as well. Just that role shifting can go really far away. Yeah. Thanks, Anna. That's an outside conversation. Beautiful. Well, I don't really think there's, I don't know. There looks like some questions, but it feels good. I feel like we're good. Yeah. I think that was good enough. Beautiful. Well, guys, we'll close up there for today. Schedule looking forward ahead of time. Laura will be moving next week, so we won't be doing too much next week together. I do have an interview with Helena Hart tomorrow. That's going at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, so check out that interview. I'm really excited to interview Helena. She seems like a very soft and sweet energy. She does relationship coaching. She's been doing it for quite some time now. She's got a lot of training in it as well, so I'm excited to ask her and get her perspective on some things. So if you want to join me for that, go ahead and join me for that. If you haven't yet, sign up for the Sacred Relationship and Sexuality series that Laura and I are doing. That's in the YouTube description box below. And pretty much for the next till, I guess, the beginning or end of June, we're just doing interviews with relationship coaches. We're going to start bringing on some newer people here as well too. And so if you want to sign up for that, check out the link in the description box. We'd love to join you. Other than that, that's all we got. Thanks so much for joining us, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.